Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the show where we explore the real practical things that help us feel more whole, more grounded, and more genuinely well in our everyday lives. I'm your host Archita, and today's guest is Peg Guilfoyle, writer, observer, and author of the brand new book An Eye for Joy, Noticing the Good World Everywhere, published by Sea Crow Press, which has earned five-star reader reviews on Amazon and praise from voices like Rev. Victoria Safford and Sue Scott of A Prairie Home Companion. Today, we are talking about everyday joy, what it actually is, why it matters for our mental health and our sense of being alive, and how the simple practice of paying attention can genuinely change you from the inside out. So, Peg, welcome to the show, and I am so delighted that you're here today.
And I'm delighted to be in conversation with you. Hello, hello.
Yeah. Like before we open everything up, I want to start with something from your prologue that, really stayed with me. So you used to ask your children at the dinner table, tell me one thing you saw or heard or thought or learned today that was beautiful or funny or interesting or new. And that is such a tender and intentional thing to do. So where did that instinct from for you? So were you raised with that kind of noticing, or did you have to find your way to it yourself?
I think people find their own way. I think you have to find your way to it, Archita. Um, and it's partly, for me, it was partly a maternal instinct. It was partly an inquiring instinct. I wanted to hear from them, and I also I wanted a way to encourage them to talk to me, which is again a kind of maternal instinct. I wanted the I wanted them to learn a kind of perception. I wanted the beautiful or funny or interesting or new things to kind of pop out from the background, surrounded by a little bit of a glow, a little buzz, and lodge themselves in their consciousness. I didn't want them to miss all the wonderful details that are enmeshed in the everyday, and I don't want to miss them either. And so this book is the result of me saying to myself, sometimes multiple times a day, come on, universe, show me one thing. And the more that I ask, the more it shows me joy and surprise and wonder and the complexity, everyday beauty, and faith in humanity in all its wild, wild diversity. It's a kind of a habit of, as I say in the subtitle for the book, noticing the good world every day, everywhere.
Beautiful. I think that is a beautiful practice. And I wish more and more people, parents especially, I wish they would start doing this because, especially nowadays at the dinner table, mostly everyone is on their phones or, just not really paying attention. But these kind of questions, I think it also helps people connect with each other more, connect with their environment more. So I think that's a beautiful practice. And this is something that we all can learn from. So I'm glad that you started with this, and I think this really sets the tone for this conversation. That also
Mhm. May I tell you a quick story for a follow-up
yes,
story to that?
yes,
So
please
my
do.
daughter, who is now grown and in her grown-up life, has carried over this makes me very happy, has carried over this practice into her professional life. So at the beginning of her workday, every workday, she gathers her staff and says, "Tell me one good thing from yesterday." So it's a way of moving through the world that just reminds you to notice the good things. The world is so overwhelming, Archita. It comes at us in a huge flood, and it's kind of an act of will, and an act of habit, I would say, to remember to notice the good things and to lift them out of the background.
I am so glad to hear that because, you know, mostly nowadays people have stopped asking questions, and in return, people have stopped sharing things with others. But these kind of practices, if they are actually maintained over time, I
Mhm.
think that it can help us, a lot in the long run. So I'm really glad to hear that. And now, this also brings me to another topic, Peg. The word joy, it gets used a lot in wellness conversations, and I think it can start to feel like one more thing we are supposed to be feeling but aren't quite managing. And there's also a misconception I sense around joy, that it somehow, you know, is a mood, a personality trait, or something that happens to lucky people in good circumstances. But I'm curious, Peg. What is the most common misunderstanding about joy that your book gently pushes back against? And what would you want people to understand about what joy actually is before they even read the first page?
That's a very good question. What I would say about that is that the book is about everyday joy, but the premise of the book is that the world is full of joy. It's full of joy. You have to do this conscious act of will to notice it and elevate it and illuminate it. But these little moments of humor or beauty or wonder that can come out of Oh, they come out of the arts, they can come out of history, they come out of curiosity, whatever they come out of. For me, establishing noticing the good world as a habit has primarily to do with people. It's the it's the connection between people that remind us that these little human interactions, no matter how small they are, no matter how sporadic they are, maybe it's somebody that you just talk to for a minute, somebody you observe, these are the things that knit the world together and remind us that the world is difficult always, but it is also beautiful and bracing and bright. And people, um, hmm, the human interconnections are what remind us that it's all one humanity, and that I think is a habit, and in a way it's a strategy. So I have met with a woman who her catchphrase is joy is a strategy. It's a choice. It's something that you choose to do every day. Mine is a little bit different. Mine is joy is everywhere. You have to notice it. And then more you notice it, in my opinion, the more you notice it, the more you see it.
I think that's definitely true. And there's this big misconception around joy, that it is innate, that some people are just made to feel joyous. But I think joy is something that can be made by your own. It needs to be made by your own, I think. It can be found in things around you only if you start paying attention. So it's really important that people develop that habit. And what you just described, it made us realize that joy is less a feeling that arrives and more a capacity that opens. And noticing is the practice that keeps it open. And that reframe feels really important, especially for people who have been waiting for joy to show up rather than training themselves to actually see it. So I'm glad that you shared that with us, Joy. And uh, also another point, I think we live in a world that is genuinely hard in many ways, and I think a lot of thoughtful caring people feel a quite tension between wanting to be present to beauty and feeling like it's somehow naive or irresponsible to focus on joy when so much is difficult in life. So what are the deeper roots of that tension, and what does your book say to the person who wants to feel more joy but keeps talking themselves out of it?
I think that there are, um, hmm, yes, the world is difficult. The world is full of difficulty. But it is my strong contention that the world is also full of beauty when you notice it, and that you can teach yourself to do that. And it doesn't have to be the big things, Archita. You can see um, in a more recent essay, for example, I was walking through a downtown park not long ago. I sat down on a bench. It was a sunny morning. There was hardly anyone in the park. And I saw a woman who was walking down the path toward me. She had big headphones on, and she was singing. She was singing aloud, some song that I'd never heard before. And she was kind of boogieing down the path and singing at the top of her lungs, and I will say that the song was a little on the bawdy side, and I looked at her and I thought, "Wow." You are having a morning. You go, girl." And she was having such a wonderful day. So I quickly, in my little notebook, I quickly wrote down some of the lyrics from the song so that I could go back and figure out what song she was singing. And then I wrote an essay about it wasn't we caught, our eyes caught each other. It wasn't a 3-second contact. And yet I was on the bench and she was walking by singing a joyous song, and we shared just a tiny, tiny moment together. And that was a moment of human connection.
That sounds lovely. And that's one of the prime examples that if you really look for joy, you'll find it everywhere around you. And I think the problem with most of people from today's generation is that they feel guilty of, wanting to feel joy when they feel that so much is happening in the world, so much wrong is happening. But that is the thing, if there is so much wrong happening in the world, you have to find your own happiness. So, what I love about what you shared is, how honest it is. And we're not asking people to pretend that things are fine. Yeah, you're asking them to widen their lens so that what is good and what is hard can both be true at the same time. And that kind of emotional spaciousness is actually very sophisticated form of mental health.
And it's a it's something that is, I would argue, life sustaining. It is nourishing to the spirit. And even when the world is difficult, or I would even say especially when the world is difficult, it's more important than ever to take these little gemstones and make sure that you see them and you hold them in your heart. And there are ways, I think, to lift your lift your eyes a little bit toward joy. They're not very complicated. I think that one of the good ways to do it is that you find other people who are joyous. Joyous by nature or joyous by habit or joyous by inclination, and choose those people to spend a little bit of time with. It rubs off. Find people who are enthusiastic really about anything. Doesn't really matter what their passion is. It's the enthusiasm itself that rubs off on people. What I find is that looking for the backstory really works for me. If I see something interesting in the world, I'm an essayist, and if I walk through the world and if I see something, I think, "Huh, that's interesting. I think I'll think about that and then write about it." So the backstory is works really well for me. Another good way to do it is to uh, revisit some passions that you might have had earlier in life. And I think when you do that, it's like it's like a campfire where the embers are kind of glowing. If you go back to that campfire and blow on it a little bit, I think that passion can be reignited. And there's all another good way to do it always is to become a trusted friend of a small child, age 3, age 4, a child who's seeing everything in the world for the first time. Everything is brand new. And if they trust you, then you can see right through their eyes into that same um, appreciation for the splendors, and I mean that, the splendors of this sometimes hard world.
I love those practical ways of actually finding joy, honestly, because I think there needs to be a balance between good and bad. And mostly people nowadays are focusing on the bad. So it's really important to come up with ways and finding the good around you. I loved the way you suggested being friends with a child. It's so important because the way they look at life is very different from the way we do, just like you explained. So I love that, honestly. And that brings me to your book. So, Peg, your book is, full of small, specific human stories. A public sculpture, a lemonade stand, a raucous wedding, and I think that specificity is part of what makes it work. So, what does a life attuned to noticing actually look like on an ordinary day, from your perspective? Not a special occasion, not a retreat, but a regular Tuesday with all its demands and distractions. So, how does someone begin to build that quality of attention into a life that is already so full?
You're right. Life is very full, and my life is no different than anybody else's life in that way. I have to work to find my writing time. I have to uh, make sure that my own vision, is adjusted so that I see things that are beautiful in the day, and that I choose not to rush by them. So my way of doing that is seeing things and then writing about them and then distributing that writing to other people. And I'm so happy that this book has found so many readers, and the readers write to me and tell me what they like about it, and they tell me their own stories about small joys that they have found, and that has created a kind of a community is an overused word, but it's a kind of a cohort of people who are similarly minded. And people write to me all the time. Oh, I read one little essay in the morning every day. Oh, I like the fact that they're small. I can read one every night. But it creates I think it creates a way of seeing. And yeah, that's the way that this writer works it. In the middle of my life, which is like yours, very complicated and very busy. Um, but I've made it a priority to look every day for joy. And Archita, there's so much beauty and beauty and wonder in the world, and so much humor. The humor is a very funny place. And even in these hard times, and they are hard times, it's nourishing to the soul, it's sustaining to the soul to remember the good stuff.
Definitely. I think you couldn't have put it in a better way, Peg. And I truly believe that the key to noticing things around you is curiosity. I think that life has so many stories. Everything has a story. And when you're curious enough, you want to know those things. And that's what makes you more attentive. And that's how you find joy. That is such a hopeful and genuinely exciting idea. The one you shared, that this is not a discipline you have to maintain through willpower, but something that becomes its own reward and momentum. It's almost like joy teaches you how to find more of it just by following it. And that is a wonderful perspective. And Peg, I think everything that you have shared today, it is going to be of great help to a lot of people who are seeking to find joy but don't know how to start. And your book is going to be the perfect start to that. So, lastly, before we close, I want to start. I want to ask you, for someone listening right now who feels like they have genuinely lost their access to joy, not dramatically but slowly, the way color fades. Someone who cannot quite remember the last time something small made them stop and smile. What would you want them to hear from you today?
Hmm. I recognize that state of being. It's a state of being that I think everyone goes through at some time in their life. But I think I think a message about that is that that is not the only state of being, and it's not a permanent state of being. It's a moment like the million moments that make up our lives, and there are other moments that are available, um, and can be found. I think there are many, many ways to try to see the beauty in life, and to one of the ways is to talk with other people and ask them, and that has to do with courage and being willing to open up about what's going on with you and what's going on with other people. And I think that we find, as I've said, that it becomes a habit, and they can be I repeat with emphasis, it can be a very small thing. It doesn't have to start out with an enormous wave of joy. It can be a small thing that you see, that you put in your heart, and once you put it in your heart, it's available for you to draw, like a little, let's see, bank account is not the right metaphor, but like a little account that you have that's available for you to draw on. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I believe this is something a lot of listeners needed to hear today. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love how practical and grounded those advice are, because you're not asking the listeners to change their lifestyle, change their habits. You're just asking them to take that very first step, which is the most important one. And what I am taking from this conversation today, Peg, is that joy is not waiting for life to get better. It is hiding in the life that you already have. And all it asks is that you turn toward it with a little more attention than yesterday. So,
I think
Joy, this
that's
has been
exactly right.
exactly. And Peg, this has been wonderful. So I think a lot of listeners will be more curious about your book now. So for everyone who wants to find your book, read your essay series, Motley Peg, or simply stay connected to your work, where is the best place for them to find you?
I think the best place is on my website. You have to be able to spell Guilfoyle. It's pegguilfoyle.com. And there is information there about the book. The book is available online. It has all these wonderful reader reviews on Amazon and in independent bookstores. And I also put it through the website if you'd like me to sign one for you personally. But the other thing that's good about the website is that I write, huh, it takes a long time to bring out a book, and then there's a book. But the seeking of joy and the admiration of joy is an ongoing process. So I write a new essay every couple of weeks, and I put them up for free on my website. It's a subscriber situation that sounds a little more formal than it actually is. Go to the website, give me your email address, and I will send you every couple of weeks a little joyful moment direct into your inbox. So, and the essay series is called Motley Peg, and it's the reason I use the word motley is because it's about everything I see in the world. So pegguilfoyle.com.
Wonderful. And listeners, everything Peg has mentioned will be right there in the show notes, including her book, the free essays, all of it. Just scroll down at it and it is waiting for you. So listeners can reach out to Peg whenever they want to. And that is where we close today's episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. If something from this conversation lit something up in you, a small curiosity, a reminder to look a little more carefully at your own ordinary day, please carry it with you. And share this episode with someone in your life who could use a little more joy right now, which is probably everyone you know. I'm Archita. Thank you for being here. Until next time, keep noticing the good world is everywhere. You just have to look.